to the Nourishing Women community, month 2 of videos. So today we are talking all about self-adoration. You all know that this is a near and dear topic to our hearts, something that we outlined in the ebook and something that we wanted to talk about more today in video formats. We previously talked about sauerkraut and the microbiome and a lot of fermentation, and today we are going a slightly different direction and exploring some of the other topics that we love to talk about. And so yeah, let's get rolling.
So we're so excited to talk to you guys today about self-adoration, and I think one of the most important things to say first and foremost is to say, this is more than self-care. And while we're definitely going to talk today about self-care and how important it is, this is far, far deeper than just self-care acts that we do on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. This is really much more of a mindset approach rather than an action approach. So talking about how we view ourselves and how we treat ourselves on a daily basis, and that to us is that self-adoration coming from a place of love for ourselves. And today we're going to talk about how to start to create that and really to create that relationship with yourself where there is love for yourself. One thing we're also going to say before we get into the topic of self-adoration is being at peace with the process. What we're talking about today is a very deep topic, and it's something that's going to take, honestly, weeks, months, years to really develop the self-adoration. So let go of the desire to change immediately. Have compassion for yourself that this is going to take time to make these changes. And again, just be at peace with this process, knowing that small changes over time are really what lead to this mindset of creating this love and self-adoration for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. It's such the foundation of moving forward and truly this process that really is fostering not just respect or trust, which are all great things that are part of self-adoration, but truly getting to that place of just letting go of the need to or the desire to manipulate or change any part of ourselves, that's internally and externally. With Victoria and I, the reason that we are so passionate about this is because we've had our own journey and struggle with this. And it took us both quite a long time to get to where we are today. And something that we like to reference that kind of goes to show how important this topic is that over 80% of women struggle with disordered eating. And so to us, that says that over 80% of women aren't happy with how they are as they are. They want to change themselves, they want to manipulate or eat differently or exercise, whatever. So over 80% of women are dissatisfied with where they are right now. Diet culture is really ubiquitous. It is the water we swim in. It is all around us. And so trying to pursue these external expectations, these societal ideals that we then place on ourselves, it really puts us in a position to not fully trust, not fully respect, not fully understand and foster and embrace that feminine, that powerful intuition that's inside of us. So the cool thing about getting to this place of complete just self-adoration is that we truly can make decisions based on actual wellness and based on our own interests out of and inspired by our own intuition and trusting that, so that the decisions we make for ourselves aren't based on what everybody else says that we should do or any outside pressure or force. They're based on us and what we want and our intuition. And so that's why this is the foundation for everything we talk about. And we just wanted to do this as one of our very first videos so that regardless of where you're at in this journey, or if you've fully made it or you just started, you're somewhere in the middle, this is always a process. And so we're here to help encourage you in this, support you in this, guide you along in any way that we can.
When starting with self-adoration, something that's important to know is your foundation and really the premise and mindset that you're going to have going into this is starting with a place of respect and trust for your body. Trusting the process as well. As we mentioned previously, this is definitely going to be a process and not something that occurs overnight. Meg and I can relate to probably many of you where we typically have kind of all or nothing mentalities or obsessive personalities, and this is something we want to encourage you not to really approach with an obsessive tendency towards self-adoration, because then it will feel overwhelming and daunting, and we really want this to feel like a fun process for each of you. So really come at this again from a place of respect and trust. Something that's also important to know is that you're going to have to change the norm. oftentimes that requires getting a little uncomfortable and being a little bit rebellious too along the way when it comes to self-adoration. It really truly is, wouldn't you agree, Meg, to be kind of a rebellious person in today's society, to believe in self-love and loving who you are truly internally and externally.
Absolutely. It's countercultural.
One of the things that holds us back from self-adoration is self-limiting beliefs. You know, it's something that many of us have, and they're very ingrained in us to have this concept of not really believing in ourselves. I think it's something that all of us really, really struggle with. So know that that's something that we're going to have to address within this work, and we're really going to have to work towards letting go of those self-limiting beliefs. So for me personally, one of the self-limiting beliefs that I had to let go of when I was working on self-adoration was my perfectionist tendency. I definitely tend to want everything to be perfect and be done perfect, and it is a self-limiting belief because ultimately there's no such thing as perfection. You can't have a perfect anything, and to have that mindset really does keep me from reaching full potential in so many areas of my life. What about you, Meg?
One of my self-limiting beliefs, or the biggest one, is that I never feel, historically, working on it, never feel like I'm good enough. Anything I do is ain't good enough. I feel that I don't know enough, that I don't have the potential to help other people, and so a lot of imposter syndrome, if you all are familiar with that terminology. So yeah, that's one of probably my biggest one, honestly, and something that I still work on today. We're not perfect, we're still in process as well.
Yeah, we're right there with you guys. What I think is so powerful though about recognizing self-limiting beliefs is, like Meg said, we have the power to, once we recognize them, we can then release them too. And again, it's not going to happen overnight, still stuff Meg and I work on all the time, but that excites me to no end, right? To know that I can truly create change. And I often think of, if I can create the power within myself to let go of this self-limiting belief, i.e. for me, maybe like a perfectionist tendency or something to that degree from Meg and imposter syndrome, we can then create change with everyone around us. And that to me is really where the power and where like the excitement level is, because that means all of us can talk to each other about releasing these self-limiting beliefs and really then creating change.
Another reason that we are so happy to and excited to talk about this is because talking about this kind of stuff is one of the most important things. Talking about our self-limiting beliefs, talking about our struggle to self-adoration and our journey to get there. I think there's a lot of shame just around us in society, a lot of shame we put on ourselves and that we feel from society. So, and a lot of internalized emotions about that we don't really talk a whole lot about. So, talking about these things helps to release that shame. Shame really it holds no ground when we face it with empathy, with compassion, with empowerment of other women around us. So talking about it, it sounds, I don't know, almost cliche just to say talk about your feelings, but it really is so important because if we just keep stuff bottled up to ourselves, it only festers and grows, and we don't ever fully release that and allow that to be faced with empathy. And like I said, shame has no place in the face of empathy. So making sure that you have just a community of strong, powerful, empowering women around you is just so important. It's not like you have to have friends that have it all figured out or anything. Have friends that are going through the journey with you. And so I think that is just another reason that we're so happy to have this community, why we're so happy, of course, to have the tribe, and just to create this community of empowering and empowered women around us. Now that we have laid the foundation for self-adoration, let's go and talk about the steps that Victoria and I have kind of outlined for you all in order to just make this more feasible, more practical, because self-adoration, self-care, these things can be a little bit nuanced and people are like, well, I don't know how to get to that place. And so we hope that these steps make things a little more practical and allow you to get to your ultimate goal of self-adoration. Step 1 is challenge the expectations. And these are the expectations that we've already been talking about in the video. Societal expectations, the societal norms or ideals that we are almost expected to measure up to or grow into or mold into. And these are things that we almost internalize internalize to our detriment because they don't allow us to fully morph and grow into who we are supposed to be, who we are meant to be. It's again one of those self-limiting beliefs almost when we internalize these. So honestly, we can almost live our lives and not even realize that we are trying to conform to these these expectations. And so noticing those, pinpointing them, and then challenging them in your life. Like, you don't have to abide by these rules. Like, who's putting these, who's coming up with these? Who's putting these in front of us? So no, choose to go against the norm, choose to challenge those in your own life, and even writing them out, I think, is really, really important.
I was gonna suggest, we'll have in all of the actions to take in the handouts, all of this information for you, but this is a great place to journal and really come to know what are your specific limiting beliefs, what are these expectations that you hold on to yourself. That way you can release them and kind of know what you're working with too. So let's talk about some specific examples of what we mean by challenging the expectations. So yes, of course, like Meg and I always talk about, this could be challenging the thin ideal, but this can also be so much more than just our body size. I think that's, of course, a very important thing to challenge, but also think of it like challenging the concept that you have to have a particular job, make a particular amount of money, have a particular house, or work a certain amount of hours per week.
Yeah, or I mean, even things like you have to dress a certain way, or you have to design, your interior design of your house has to look this certain Instagram perfect, picture perfect
Don't you feel
way.
like Instagram, especially like perfectionist belief that we all have to have, it means that highlight reel concept that we all have to have and be and look and do all these things.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of expectations that we're talking about. Maybe to their expectations your parents or your family placed on you too. I know that's something that I think a lot about too.
Yes, and yeah, like the certain kind of life that you lead, or like the order in which you do things in your life, like even on big picture perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, just because something is conventional or it's expected of you doesn't mean you have to do it. Another example is even us as, or anybody in any sort of business, but definitely as entrepreneurs, it's like if you're not doing it this way, or if you're not hustling like this, or if you're not doing all of these other things, then you're not doing it right, you're not doing enough. And the thing is, there's no doing it right, there's no doing enough like in life. It's just like, what do you want out of life? So cast off all this other noise, shut out the noise, and get real with what you want. And honestly, like Victoria and I have these kind of conversations with each other all the time.
Because again, like some of these things, like it really depends on where it's coming from. Like if that's something is your value system of what you want, that's totally different than doing something because someone else expects that of you. So really, like we said, talking about it with a friend, like the way we do, that's the purpose of this community too, so we can all talk about this together, and even journaling with yourself and getting real with, is this your own belief system or is this an expectation placed upon you?
Yeah. Now, before we go into step 2, we want to acknowledge the fact that her neighbor decided to mow his lawn right now with like an industrial sized lawnmower. So if you hear that nice humming in the background and the sound of weed backing, there it is. That's what that is. So sorry y'all, thanks for bearing with us. We almost paused and continued later, but as the day goes on, shit gets weird. I almost said shit gets weird, but I didn't. Weird things start to happen with our voice, so.
Now on to step 2, changing your vernacular. So as we were just referring to, this can be about so many different things. This can be about your body, but this can be about work, a self-limiting belief about yourself. So we want to change the vernacular with the internal voice inside of us. So when we're thinking about this, oftentimes, honestly, we speak to ourselves very negatively. And I think that's something that we can really challenge and then begin to create change around. So there's kind of 4 different concepts in ways I believe that we talk to ourselves. So there's hatred, there's neutrality, there's acceptance, and love. It's really hard to go from hating yourself and using very negative comments about yourself to then being very loving and kind and gracious toward yourself. Of course, that's where we want everyone to get to, but I think what's so much more helpful is to go through this step. So I'm going to use examples of our body and ways in which to explain this to you, but again, know this can be in so many different facets. So for example, if you say very hateful things about your body, it's going to be very hard to be like, oh my god, I love my cellulite, I love my body fat rolls. No, like that's going to be impossible. So what's a really easy transition to do is go from hatred to neutrality. So if you're talking negatively about your body, like i.e. I hate cellulite, you can then be like, I have cellulite. This is neutral. I can believe this is neutral. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. I've been taught by society, like we've been talking about, to believe it's a negative thing, but I can just see it as a neutral comment. And then I can be like, I have cellulite and I accept it. Cool. I don't love it. I don't hate it. And that neutral acceptance transition again that we're talking about. And then from there, eventually, I promise it can actually be a place of love where you're like, I love my cellulite. Like, this is me, this is my body, I love this. So again, there's hatred, neutrality, acceptance, and love, and transitioning through those, changing your vernacular can be really helpful. So a good journaling moment here might be to sit down with yourself and be honest with where you're at within these steps. You know, are you at hatred? Are you at acceptance within the 4 categories? And really challenging yourself to then move from the next one. So if you're at hatred, going into neutral comments towards yourself, again, it can be about your body, but also so much more topics than just that. And then going from there to acceptance and then eventually love.
The next 3 steps that we're going to address and talk about and really unpack here, yes, these do relate specifically to self-acceptance with our bodies, but we want to remind you all that all of this does not just apply to our bodies. We do talk about our bodies specifically right now in this video because it's one of those things that, as women, it's a foundational struggle that almost all of us
absolutely
have in common, okay? So tackling this area, this self-limiting belief, and really challenging the expectations in this way can give us the courage, it can give us the foundation from which to challenge other areas of our life, to really grow this intuition, to grow and foster this relationship with ourselves, and not just with our physical selves, but with all other aspects of how we live our lives. So step 3 is one of my favorite steps because it's just kind of funny, kind of weird, but it's get naked. It is embracing us and our female figures and getting comfortable with ourselves, okay? So honestly, this can be so uncomfortable for so many women, and we put this in here because this is something that Victoria and I struggled with immensely. I remember in my days of really self-hatred and just not loving myself at all, being naked with myself was very, very, very uncomfortable. And I know Victoria was the same. And so this is one of those situations that doing what is uncomfortable for us actually enables us to grow and become more comfortable with something that should be so innately comfortable for us, okay? And these things will never become comfortable unless we actually start to do them. And so just getting naked is a way to bypass all the fluff, all the things, and just get real with ourselves and get to know ourselves again. Because for so long, I lived my life just trying to cover up all the time. Even when I was by myself, I did not want to just see myself. I did not even want to expose myself in that way to myself, which is a really sad thing. And so, yeah, we encourage women to just cast off all the clothes and walk around your house naked. Just make sure you close the blinds. Yeah. It's important. You know, go take a bath, do yoga naked. It really enables you to practice that self-compassion that we've been talking about, and that grace, and learning to foster that relationship with yourself and learning to challenge the vernacular. So it gives you a place where you can practice all these things that you know to be true and that you want to foster in yourself. So it's just a matter of doing it, and it gets easier and easier, and we promise you that, because there's nothing that you have to change about yourself in order to be comfortable with yourself and confident with yourself, okay? And so, you know, it doesn't matter what anybody else or society tells you that the way that you should think about yourself. What matters is how you feel about yourself, and you don't have to change anything about yourself to love yourself.
Wonderfully said. So building upon that, step 4 is appreciate your curves, or lack thereof. So we all come in many different sizes, shapes, and forms. To believe we all need to have this one specific ideal is kind of ridiculous, right? Like, it is, I mean, if you look around anywhere that you live, like, you're gonna see people in all these different shapes, and we really wanna embrace and encourage that. For Meg and I, the ideal is not to create another ideal, it's to literally abolish all ideals. Now, this might seem a little bit silly, but think of it like flowers. There's so many different types of flowers out there, and they're all uniquely beautiful in their own ways. So same with our body sizes, right? It would be silly to think that we would all need to be the same size. So that's how we really want to encourage you to embrace and appreciate your curves, or lack thereof. Yeah. It really excites me because think about the future generations, right? If you kind of look back historically, there's always been different ideals within time and history. And think of for future generations, if we can abolish all ideals, all different body sizes will be shown within media and literature and history, and that to me is so exciting. So think of it too, like, I mean, if we can appreciate our own quirks or lack thereof, then we can create change. And again, that's such an empowering way to view all of this.
The last and final step in this whole process is step number 5, and it is find your identity in something apart from yourself. We feel like our bodies are a measure of our worthiness almost, which is very unfortunate when we put so much time into thinking about and obsessing over it and trying to change things about ourselves. But in reality, it really is a non-issue. Again, we would love for in future generations us to not even have this conversation, you know, because we as women are so, and any human is so much more than just our skin. And so to have such an obsession with ourselves is really us putting our identity in ourselves and our physical appearance, which is not the case at all. That is not who we are as people, okay? So that we have so much more to offer than just what we look like. So we need to find our identity in something apart from ourselves. And so that's gonna look different for every single person, okay? But the thing is, it can't be something to do with you. It can't be something to do at least with your physical appearance, okay? So I think a really great way of finding out how to do this and maybe exploring some other options is doing things like journaling, meditation, go on walks, get out in nature, really just embrace the world around us and maybe get our sights off of ourselves, because again, diet culture always puts our sights on just us. It's like, hey, remember what's wrong with you? What's wrong with it? Experiencing the world at large and all of its beauty it has to offer, then we get our sights off of just us. And that's really liberating and that's freeing because there's so much more out there.
Yeah, if you think about it, when we're constantly focused on our physical bodies, it really keeps us from making true change and creating that, you know, what we really desire for our lives and for the lives of other people. We're so concentrated on the calories in our bodies and exercise, we forget about the other things. And again, that's unfortunately the way that our society works right now, is having women focus on these things so we can't really focus on other things. So this is a really empowering tool, I believe, for all of us as women to utilize in order to really create and facilitate change.
And I think another great way of just fostering this change within us is picking up other hobbies. You know, getting out and going out with friends, volunteering and doing some community service. So again, all things just that have to do with other things apart from just our physical appearance, our physical bodies. Finding other hobbies is just such a great way to explore ourselves and our passions and what we enjoy, and also just interact with the community and the world around us.
And y'all, it's not a bad thing to care about your physical health or trying to work on health issues, but what we're trying to do here is not be obsessive or fixated on it. We don't want, you know, your how you eat and your exercise and wellness to be your identity. We just want it to be things that we do and have our identity outside of, again, just our physical appearance or how we treat wellness, that kind of stuff.
You know, like she said, there's a big difference between finding your identity in something and finding your identity in your health issues or your body and your physical appearance versus just caring about those things, okay? And so I think a lot of time that line can be a little bit blurred and we might not even realize that we're doing it. And so be mindful of it, something to journal about and something really to think about and ponder about. And you know, this step is fun because you get to, we're kind of giving you all permission and encouraging you all to go and branch out and to do other things, you know, and come up with some hobby maybe you haven't even done before. Go take some classes, look on.
We still need to go take that pottery class.
I've been thinking about it. I know. We're taking a pottery class. And please make this a priority. I know that our schedules can be busy and it can be hard to schedule in time for things that seem optional, but really these are non-negotiables. I mean, these are soul-nourishing activities and rejuvenating activities. So make this a priority in your life. Schedule it in if you have to do some classes or go do volunteer work, because I promise you it really is life-changing when you do make this in yourself and fostering your soul a priority.
So there you go. There's the steps to self-adoration. We hope that was helpful. Again, there is steps and actions to take and all this information laid out in the handouts that you'll find in the Teachable site with this video. Thank you guys so much for listening today.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.